Medicine Hat Police Commission meeting in council chambers. Thank you for anyone joining us online. I'll begin this evening with a land acknowledgement. The Medicine Hat Police Service and its Police Commission honor and acknowledge that we are situated on Treaty 7 and Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Stoney Nakoda, and Tsuut'ina, as well as the Cree, Sioux, and Saulteaux bands of the Ojibwe people. We also acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Métis Nation. I will now ask any commission member present to advise the chair if they have any known or perceived conflicts of interest as it relates to the agenda as circulated. Any declared conflicts will be noted in the minutes. Seeing none, we will move on to the business portion of the meeting. Item number 4 is the agenda. It was circulated as part of your pre-meeting package. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments? If it please the commission, I will withdraw the notice of motion that is part of the governance modernization item 9A. However, we will leave governance modernization on the agenda for the purposes of a discussion. With that, I'll ask for a motion to approve as amended. Commissioner Thorson, thank you. The seconder, Commissioner Chukunura, thank you. Anybody abstained? Opposed? The agenda is approved as amended. Last meeting minutes were also circulated as part of your pre-meeting package. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve. Commissioner Thorson, thank you. Commissioner Chukunura, thank you. Anybody abstained? Opposed? The minutes are approved as circulated. With that, I will turn it over to Chief Murphy for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Alec Milne from Framework Partners Incorporated. Alec has worked with the Police Service and the Commission for a number of years now for our community survey. Gives him a unique view on what he sees each time because he's seen it over a number of times now, and allows him to provide us some great in-depth insight. So I welcome Mr. Milne, and please take it away.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, sir. And thank you also for the opportunity to be here with you tonight. We're very pleased we love long-term clients. So we're very pleased to be here again working with the Police Commission, the Police Service as well. Framework has been around for 25 years and completed well over 1,000 of these sort of surveys and engagements over that time. So we've got a lot of knowledge and experience on how to interpret the knowledge, but also comparative information, which I hope to share a little bit with you tonight. So thank you for that. The first few slides we'll go through relatively quickly because I think you're all very well aware of those slides, and also very well aware of what it is that you asked me to do. I'm going to talk very quickly about the reliability of the information. It's a public survey, it is a sample survey, and it's a telephone-based survey. So we talked to 400. You only have to talk to 400 people if you want to survey the entire country of the United States, because they're randomly selected very carefully and stratified very carefully. And that allows us to express a margin of error of plus or minus 5% 19 times out of 20. As you can see, on the two major criteria, which are the gender and age that we use to measure whether or not the sample is an accurate representation of the community, as you can tell, they're very strongly matched with the last federal census of the community. So very strong in both of those regards. So the probability, the odds of there being non-response bias, those who did not respond to the survey having a different opinion than those who did respond to the survey, is very small. So it's actually 1 in 19. So it's 1 in 20. 19 times out of 20, it's strong. So data is not weighted as well. Lots of surveys now are weighted, but we do not do that because we try and actually get an accurate sample, so which this is. So very pleased with the accuracy and the responsiveness of the survey. The survey is consistent with previous years because we like to do inter-period trending. A lot of that information is there for your examination. And what we're going to try and do today, out of respect of your time and your agenda, is to hit some of the highlights of this, not all of this content, but the major findings that we saw as we worked through the survey. Sorry about that. The last thing I'm sure you want to hear and see is pictures of us and our awards and whatever. We don't apply for awards, make it a practice not to apply, but we have won several. And we also do work with professors at universities. I've taught at universities across the country, and as I say, I've conducted over 1,000 of these projects in the past 35 years now. So it's been a while. So this is GenSat. This is general satisfaction. This is the most important question on the survey. The general satisfaction, we ask people on a scale of 1 to 7, from very satisfied to very dissatisfied. Please indicate how satisfied you are in general with the Medicine Hat Police Service. We do that very intentionally because we're trying to push people off the fence. I understand that you say you're satisfied. Now, are you just somewhat satisfied or are you very satisfied? I'm really trying to push you off the fence. And if you are dissatisfied, that's fine. This is why 5-point scales are often very inaccurate. And why you'll see when you go to Amazon and there's all these 5-point scales, why they go to 2 decimal places to actually try and show the distinction between it, because data clumps in the second observation. The somewhat satisfied is not a strong indication of satisfaction. You have about 28% of the residents of the city of Medicine Hat are what we would call indifferent. We know that 64% of the residents of Medicine Hat are either very satisfied or are satisfied. So top 2, 64%. Bottom 2, which are those who are very dissatisfied, is actually, and dissatisfied, it is 8%. And that's actually an increase from 2023, which is a little worrying. So we all know the opposite of love, because we're grown-ups. We all know the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. And there is a big chunk in here, almost 30% of the residents who I would say are a little bit indifferent, which is what we would sort of expect to see. There's a little bit of a trend here in terms of the drop in general satisfaction. Now, we just learned the margin of error is plus or minus 5% 19 times out of 20. So it's within the margin of error that dropped from 66% down to 64%. So it's not, we don't know if that's statistical noise or if that's a significant start of a bit of a trend yet. So it'll be very interesting in 2 to 3 years when we survey again for you to see whether or not that is part of a trend. We're not like the oil and gas industry where we predict the price of oil and we get 2 data points, we slap a ruler on it, and we get draw the trend over a third. We need 3 or 4 points before we can actually spot a trend. And that's also true of this. And so when we compare the results over time, what we can see is actually a bit of a change. So you had the high water mark in 2021 at 71%, very strong result, very consistent with what we saw in 2017. So in 2026, when we're at 64%, the question is whether or not that is a decrease or is it a return to the norm. A few years ago, a gentleman in the United States did a study because he was very frustrated that every time his NHL or NFL team signed a free agent, the next year after they signed the free agent, it always seemed like the free agent was terrible. And so he did a study, and he actually won the Nobel Prize for economics on this. And what it actually found out was that the players were not worse the year after. They just returned to the norm. They went back to the way they were before. The year before the contract, they had a big bonus year. That got them the big contract, but that was the unusual years, not the fact they dropped down. It's actually a return to the norm. So when you compare yourselves back to 2011, the first time we surveyed for you in 2014, these results in last time and this time are very consistent with that on an overall basis. So I think that we don't know that this is a trend yet, but we do know that it is consistent historically, but we will know next time, I think, with the 4th data point. Now, we do see, however, in society, a worrisome trend. And the worrisome trend is the dropping of satisfaction overall. This is a summary of the last decade of general satisfactions for all of our clients from different sectors, but also policing services are in here, communities are in here, for-profit businesses are in here. And we know the preliminary numbers for 2026, it's only half of the year, the general satisfaction ratings is at 66%. So you can see what happened in 2020 with the pandemic. General satisfaction dropped, and then coming out of the pandemic, the satisfaction was buoyed. Everybody came out, and they're actually, I think, probably happy to get out of the house a little bit. Satisfaction levels went up. And then 73, 72, 70, 71, 69, 66. It's dropping every single year. And these are what we would call externalities, things that affect you, that impact you, that you do not have control over. This decrease in satisfaction more broadly in society and some of these disruption, I guess I would call it, in society is a worrying trend. It's a worrying trend for businesses, it's a worrying trend for not-for-profits, it's a worrying trend for municipalities. But it's very, very true here. This is not just true here, but this is also true with all the municipalities. We just finished a big research project for a big municipality on the West Coast, and the same issues there, and it was about the park system. So, people are becoming much more acerbic and discerning, I guess I would say, in terms of in their ratings of satisfaction levels on an overall basis. And I think it's part of a larger societal trend. So it's an issue. So we'll see what happens towards the end of 2026, whether or not it pops back up, or whether or not it's a bigger issue. We also know that there's an affordability crisis going on right now, which is affecting a lot of the general satisfaction levels. We do an annual study based on looking at the proportion of Canadians who are employed who are living paycheck to paycheck. And this past year, it hasn't been released to the media, so I won't tell too much about it, but this past year, we found that the proportion of employed Canadians who are living paycheck to paycheck is as high as we've measured it in 17 years. And so it's a very, very worrisome trend, and those worrisome trends are actually, we're seeing that evidenced in the data. So your drop in satisfaction, when you look at that, it actually seems pretty minor. And also the other thing I would say for some of our other clients is when we see a drop in satisfaction now, when they see that there's been an issue, a software that didn't work, a new service that they'd launched as a for-profit organization that didn't work, their customers are actually hitting them with drops of satisfaction of 20 and 30 and 40%. Generally, it takes about 2 years for those to pop back up, and we're finding they're actually enduring. So something is changing right across the board in society, which is affecting all organizations similar to yours. It doesn't make it easier, it actually makes it more difficult in your job, frankly, to deal with some of these changes, but they are happening. When we look at this, we want to actually find out what the drivers are. When we look at the general satisfaction, we give them an open-ended question. They can say anything that they want, including don't hire extremely tall management consultants, market research people. They can say whatever they want, and we will return it verbatim. We go through all of that, and we look for trends. And it's very interesting to us because what we see here is some trends that are positive and perhaps some that are not as positive. So we're seeing the largest and highest proportion we've seen so far of just a general positive comment. Why do you like the Medicine Hat Police Service? I just do. I think they're fantastic. Okay, well that's as high as we've ever seen it. We really like the attitude of the officers. We really like the fact that they're visible. Those are all positive. Parking, traffic, speed enforcement, that's increased. In terms of mentions of things that drive satisfaction. But then on the other side too, as well, we're starting to see unresolved issues. That's that red box on the right-hand side, and perhaps some efficiency and reliability issues. But if you get the efficiency and the reliability right, you can actually see with the satisfaction levels, they actually go up to almost 90%. And so I think those interchanges are positive and a strong indication of actually what's driving satisfaction. What's driving satisfaction is different than what's driving dissatisfaction. And those are very different items. And so we see that here. It's counterindicative and almost counterintuitive as well. We're seeing trends that are going opposite ways all through your data, which is also a sample or evidence of people who don't, frankly, agree, and sort of some of the divisions that we're seeing in society. So lots of elements there. And this is also, there's 2 or 3 other elements which we think are really influencing the perception of the police service, and this is a big one. Do you feel safe living in Medicine Hat? Well, that actually has dropped from 77% 5 years ago to 67% this year. So that's a drop of 10 points, which is twice the size of the margin of error, which means it's twice the standard deviation, which means it's a really big change. And so these are things that are beyond your control. And then if you look at those 2 red arrows there, they're pointing out to the people who really say, I'm actually quite fearful now. That actually has doubled since 2023. So these are things that happen. These are people being influenced by social media perhaps or what have you. And it is really driving. So we see that the proportion of people who are satisfied, feel that they're safe living in Medicine Hat has dropped, and the proportion of people who say that they're safe living in their community has also dropped by 10 points. So not in their own neighborhood. So not just are they feeling generally unsafe in Medicine Hat, far more of them, and there actually is almost a tripling of the proportion of people who don't feel safe in their own neighborhood. And then we follow that up and say, well, okay, are there any areas of Medicine Hat that you avoid? And it's the downtown and the flats area is the real big drop, right? So you actually see those are actually increasing. And then I don't know what's happening in Riverside, but whatever it is good, because no one's mentioning it anymore as a community that, or a neighborhood perhaps that is fearful for people to live in. But in the columns on the left-hand side, we see that they're only the 37% of the respondents to the survey are comfortable everywhere in the city. That's pretty significant. And that's not the size of the margin of error, of course, but you can see that that's independent of satisfaction. So you can see the satisfaction levels there have actually are consistent over time, and some of the higher levels of satisfaction that we measure. So even though more people feel uncomfortable everywhere, so they're more fearful everywhere, it's actually they still have strong satisfaction and trust in their police service. So they're not blaming you for that all the way through. Are you confident in the police service's ability to investigate crime? And the answer to that is yes. It's at 66%. It's 2/3. And that is an increase of 4%, which is at the margin of error, which means it's a statistically significant increase. It's back up to where we saw it in 2021 and earlier. And if you look at the chart on the left, you can see the proportion of those who are very confident really has increased quite a bit. So hang on, Alec. Just a moment ago, you said that satisfaction is slightly down, and now you're saying confidence is up. And then just a moment ago, you said that actually the visibility is up, but the efficiency is slightly down. So we see arrows going back and forth. We're very confident in the sample, but it shows you that people right now are in a bit of disruption as they go through this. And then we ask them, so why? What's influencing that question? What's influencing your response to that question? A lot of people say, well, I don't have experience with them, so I don't know, which is fine. But then the third set of columns there on the left-hand side of the chart, you can actually see the proportion of people who are blaming the justice system for some of the issues that the city may be facing. They're not blaming you, they're blaming the justice system. So lots of different elements here. Now, we follow that up with another question about confidence, and that actually hasn't changed. That's a very definition of the word modest. That's a modest change, right? It's very strongly within the margin of error. So, okay, fine. So they remain confident and they remain trust and they believe that you can investigate crime. And then, but then the other side of that is say, well, do you trust the Medicine Hat Police Service? Of course, what happens in order to be trusted is you have to get four things right. You have to prove that you're competent, you have to prove that you're reliable, you have to prove that you understand what's important to the people you're serving, and then you have to act in their best interest and not your best interest. Those are the four things you need in order to be a trusted advisor. But that doesn't always work for police services, of course, because you have a higher standard of care. So very difficult in these things. So as I say, some things are up and some things are down, certainly here. And then we look at this on an overall basis, so well, what's driving that? So what's driving the community needs? Reputation, for sure, that's not mentioned by as much, but we also see lots of different elements in terms of visibility and presence as well. So this is a very small sample part, because this is just the people on the right-hand side, like the 9% who said they disagree with that. But you can see from that, a lot of people don't even know what's actually driving their confidence, their drop in confidence. They just know that it's there. And it's interesting to me, I think, in terms of segmentation, to take a look at this slide, because it tells us that it is not the new citizens in Medicine Hat that are struggling with the police service. It's the long-term residents in Medicine Hat. There's a very, very strong correlation between the tenure in the city and satisfaction with the police service. The green line, not the dotted green line, the solid green line, is actually general satisfaction. So you can see that those who've been residents for more than 20 years, their satisfaction levels are quite low. And the new residents, perhaps those for whom have a basis of comparison because they've lived in a different city and have come here and said, well, no, this place is very safe. This place, police services are actually very well served. It's actually much different. Their satisfaction levels are appreciably higher. And when I say appreciably higher, I mean like 20 and 30 points higher. It's much, much higher. Also, as we go through the whole survey, there's lots of different elements that we measure, and I think some of them are really strongly telling. If you look at the green arrows at the top, we can see the communication satisfaction is up tremendously, and in fact, that's actually the biggest improvement that we saw. The criminal investigation satisfaction top 2 is up by 4.5% or so. We see the 7-point increase for officer interaction. So when people encounter a police officer or constable, their satisfaction levels are actually quite high because they've been treated with respect and so forth. So very positive results there. Lots of other pieces as well are very marginal changes, I guess I would call these, very consistent with what we've seen last time and what we'd seen the year before. Very, very slight change in terms of being uncomfortable everywhere. Starting being uncomfortable downtown, we can see the slight worsening there. And then a little fewer people expressing an opinion one way or the other with some of the police communication tools. So overall, as we take a look at this, we see the satisfaction actually dropping by a few points, but we're not worried about that because of the amount of satisfaction drops that we're seeing more broadly in society. We don't think it's a big increase. We'll know better in 2 years to see whether or not it is part of a long-term trend. We know that this is being affected by some confidence elements in terms of some of the media elements, but despite that, we know the communication efforts of the police service are actually quite well thought of. So with your kind permission, I'd ask for any questions that you may have. As you can tell from this, we tested about 20 other elements as well, all of which have been reported in detail in the full report. And they're along with our conclusions on each one of those ones as well. But as you can see from this, on an overall basis, there's lots of different pieces here. It's a very rich data set and also a very timely one with the interperiod elements. So if I were to say what the big summary is, the big piece is the general satisfaction has dropped by 2 points since 2023, but we believe that that is a modest decrease, and we believe that that is not as big of an increase as what we're seeing more broadly in society. Sorry, I'll breathe in now. I know that's a fire hose, a little bit, a lot of information, very, very fast. I want to be respectful of your agenda. But if you have any questions or anything like that, I'd be very, very pleased to chat about them and respond.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the continued service to the Medicine Hat Police Service and the community. Commission members, questions? Vice Chair Keane.
Thank you for the presentation, Alec.
Thank you, sir.
Just going back to the number that were surveyed, which is the 400, some people have a challenge understanding how that can give an accurate reflection of the city. And I know you touched on it briefly. I'm just wondering if you could touch on it again, whether the science behind it or the mathematics, whatever it is that comes in the survey world, just to help our community understand. I know I saw some things on social media about 400 and, how can that be enough? But just if you could do that, that would be great.
Thank you, sir. Absolutely, we'd be very pleased to. And one thing I actually did miss on this slide, which is to say that we closed the survey in April, so the survey is very current, so it's very recent information. There's 2 types of surveys. One's called a convenience sampling survey and one's called a random sampling survey. And the random one is still the gold standard. Phoning people is still the gold standard. We phone non-cell phone or cell phone only households as well. 60% of the sample is cell phone only households. So lots of elements that we take very carefully to make sure that we hit every demographic that we possibly can in the proportion in which it's represented in society. The difference between a convenience sampling and this is that if it's a convenience sampling, like an online survey, you choose whether or not you're going to respond. Right? So maybe you've got an axe to grind. Maybe you're really, really happy. Maybe your next door neighbor is a police officer or a bylaw enforcement officer, and you know that they're a good person, so you're really happy, or what have you. I mean, what you tend to lose out is the middle ground. So it's like the suggestion box, right? The suggestion box usually gets stuffed with complaints. Anybody can respond to those. We don't do that with these surveys, right? So we choose who's going to respond, as opposed to them choosing who's going to respond. And that's the key difference. We make sure that this randomized sample that we've got, that everybody in the entire city has the same probability of being selected to respond to the survey, and that's the key. And so that allows us to do a whole bunch of mathematics to come up with a margin of error. There's a bunch of formulas and pieces like that, textbooks on this element for it, as to why this is actually reliable and is a strong sample. And as I said before, you don't have to talk to anybody more than 400, because what you find out is that at 400, you start to see that the numbers don't move. The numbers stay really, really consistent over time. The numbers do this initially in a survey, they start, sorry, people online, I see my hand waving, but the numbers will wave a little bit, and then at 400, they lock in, and they don't move after that. So I don't have to talk to you to make sure that your opinions are in here. We talk to enough people in the city of Medicine Hat to make sure that your opinions are in here, because there are like-minded people here. There are people, and frankly, if it doesn't represent your opinions, it's because perhaps your opinions are your opinions and not very many other people's opinions. So those elements are in there as well. So those are all very representative, also very, very careful how we actually did the sampling, and make sure that nobody gets phoned 3 times, and there's a whole bunch of very careful elements that we use. So I say, well, you never talk to me. Well, that's okay, right? Because I'm 6'10", right? So it's okay you don't talk to me and that I don't have my voice in here, because if it did, it would change, right? Like when I walked into this room, the average height increased, but none of you got taller, right? So it's the same element. You want to make sure that, okay, there's only 1 in 100,000 have my height, so you want to be very careful to make sure that only 1 in 100,000 would be selected for the survey. The big element to make sure the big piece is that we carefully choose who we talk to, making sure that everyone in the city has the equal and same opportunity of being chosen to complete the survey, as opposed to them choosing to respond to the survey. It's a key element. Sorry, long answer to a short question, but I think it's something that's really, really important.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Commission, any other questions for Mr. Milne? Seeing none, I will take the opportunity. You talked about returning to normal or returning to baseline. I assume in your world, whether that was a significant increase in what I will frame as positivity or a significant increase as what would be considered negativity. I guess my question, Alec, is how does that compare in law enforcement in communities of similar sizes, and even just more broadly across law enforcement in community policing across Canada?
Yeah, it's a very good question, sir. And as you can see from the little red circle on the column, it's not the 64% that we're talking about. It's the proportion of those who are very dissatisfied, and that has doubled in the last 5 years. So I don't want to downplay that. That's absolutely accurate, and that's getting close to 10%. That's getting close to 1 in 10 households in the city are expressing strong dissatisfaction. And so that is a very worrisome trend. There's no question about that. Is it a blip or is it a trend? We won't know until the next time we go to survey in 2 to 3 years. For you, is it consistent with what we're seeing elsewhere? It's absolutely consistent with what we're seeing elsewhere. And it is consistent with what we're seeing, not just in medium-sized cities, I guess I would call your city. We're seeing it in large cities and in small cities, and we're seeing people being far more punitive in their judgments on public officials as well. So, and then they're not recovering those opinions. They're not bouncing back in a few years the way that they used to. Remember, it used to be like when the snake swallowed the hippopotamus, there was like the big bulge, right? But after a while, the snake, digested the animal and it was fine. That's not happening anymore. Like it's staying there. Like the institutional memory is getting longer and longer as well. So it's a very worrisome trend, because we also know that some of the safety statistics are going actually the opposite direction and have for almost 50 years.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chief,
sir.
anything from your side?
I just want to thank Mr. Milne for the great work. There's a lot for us to digest, and there's clearly lots we can work on. And I thank you for bringing this forward. This will be posted on the commission website, to my understanding, for tomorrow. Thank you very much, Mr. Milne.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the opportunity to be of service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 7, coming to standing items. We'll start with a police budget update. Chief Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be very brief with this. For the police budget, currently tracking an $89,000 negative variance. That is based within the benefit rate and our vacancy adjustment. And all of the good news is all the things that are within our control are doing very well, and we'll keep reporting on this to you as we go along throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Murphy. Any questions for the Chief? Seeing none, Commissioner Shikanura is our Alberta Association of Police Governance rep, submitted a written report. I will open the floor to any questions if there are any, or anything to add, Commissioner Shikanura.
Oh, no, there's nothing to add. Thank you.
Seeing no questions, we'll move on to number 8, Office of the Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to turn it over to Inspector Graham for 2 reports. First, the Operational Services Report, and then the Investigation and Support Services Report. Take it away, Inspector Graham.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Commissioners. I'll have you turn your attention to page 15 of your package that was provided to you. And I'm going to speak about an incident that occurred at about 2:30 a.m. on May 13th when members of the Medicine Hat Police Service were conducting proactive patrols in the light industrial area in response to an increase in property crime. During the patrol, officers observed a suspicious vehicle parked in the alley behind a closed business as 2 individuals exited the vehicle. Officers initiated a traffic stop and identified the occupant as a 39-year-old male and a 31-year-old female passenger. Police determined the vehicle had been reported stolen from a business in Redcliffe, and the individuals were taken into custody without incident, and the male was charged with possession of stolen property over $5,000, breach of probation, 4 counts of breach of probation, and failing to comply with the release order. Additionally, the female was charged with possession of stolen property over $5,000. I highlight this because it's a strong example of proactive policing, and it is an example of a basic core police function, and being proactive in this instance likely prevented additional crimes from occurring. Next, I'll have you turn your attention to page 16. I'll speak briefly on a matter that involved our drone unit, which assisted in locating an 11-year-old child with autism who had left school and was believed to be heading towards a nearby commercial area. The drone was used to quickly assess the walking paths and shoreline areas, providing immediate search capability during this critical early stages. Although the child was later located safe at the family member's residence, the deployment highlighted the value of a rapid aerial support in missing child investigations. And then finally, I'll have you turn your attention to page 22 of your package, and I'll just quickly speak about some training that occurred in the police service in May. Throughout the whole month of May, all our sworn Medicine Hat police members were transitioning to the new TASER 10 and complete certification training, and rollout for these new tasers is scheduled for early July. That will conclude my report for both the operational and investigational support services, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions for Inspector Graham? Seeing none, Chief, we can move on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Saney.
Thank you, Chief. I have nothing to report.
Thanks, Deputy. And Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'll move on to Chief's report. Just a couple of things that I want to highlight here today is the first one is very unfortunate and very sad that in the last week there have been 2 additional police officers killed in our country. The first was Ontario Provincial Police Constable Tarun Bali. He was a 2.5-year service officer who was struck by a vehicle and killed on June 9th in Hearst, Ontario. His regimental funeral will be tomorrow in Ontario. 2 days later, again, very unfortunately and very sadly, Toronto Police Service 18-year constable Mark Pinizzato was shot and killed during an altercation in North York. His funeral will be held next week on June 24th. So just goes to, again, point out the dangers that police officers all over our country face, and it's a very dangerous occupation. We thank those members for their service, and our thoughts and prayers go out to both those officers' families. The last point I'd like to make is just our thoughts and prayers in our community go out to the family of the child that lost his life at Echodale Park a couple of days ago. Terribly tragic event, but I do want to highlight the outpouring of support in this community that just highlights what this community is all about in a great way. And we thank them for that. But we also want our thoughts and our prayers to go out to the school communities, first responders that were involved or not involved, but normally and generally in their duties have to deal with very traumatic incidents. Thoughts go to civic employees and all other affected people in our community. I think this event highlighted for me the broad impact it's had over the last couple of days, and it's really struck me, but the strength of this community has been very important, but our thoughts go out to everybody on this. And that's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chief Murphy, for those thoughts and sentiments. We'll take a moment just to reflect on the police officers we've lost and the young lad that we lost here in the city here recently. Thank you. With that, we move on to new business, 9A, and that's governance modernization. I'll turn it over to the Chair of the Governance Committee, Commissioner Thorson.
Thank you, Chair. We are presenting to the Commission today a document for consideration. And for a refresher, a number of months ago, we were tasked with the job of reviewing the policy manual for the Medicine Hat Commission. Part of that was we received a general template for terms of reference and what to give us guidance as to what we're supposed to be doing, as you referenced earlier at the beginning of the meeting. So that's the genesis of what we're going through right now and the direction in which we're heading. So we're going to be taking a look at policies, bylaws, whatever, just to make sure everything is foundational and aligned appropriately, so it just helps everything function better. So it took us a while to get the plane off the runway, but we're presenting you with a document right now. We're starting with, for your considerations, if you turn to, I guess the page aren't numbered, but we started with definitions for policy. Some of the definitions were clear, some of the definitions weren't applicable anymore. There were acronyms there that nobody really had a handle on what they meant. So we thought it was just easier for dealing with this document that we clarify all these definitions now. If more come up, we can amend that as we move along. So I'd offer the Commission to take a look at, there are 2 pages, 2.5 pages. Section B, definitions for the Police Commission policy and procedure. Following definitions shall apply. Many of them are the same. Those that are amended are the acronym ATIA, Council Bylaw. The Commission Bylaw is City Bylaw 1651. We'll be referencing that soon to make sure that that's concurrent and aligned with what we're doing. Member, we amended to include Medicine Hat City Council or Government of Alberta in compliance with the amended Police Act. The acronym POPA, Police Act, another couple acronyms there. Sworn member was, we wanted to clarify that, is a member who is sworn to oaths employed by the Medicine Hat Police Service. And a non-sworn member would be a civilian member and volunteer staff for the Medicine Hat Police Service, because those three groups of people are still working within the service. Public Complaints Director has been amended to align with the Police Act changes that are coming down. The same can be said for Police Review Commission. Of importance to the committee, the governance committee, we really expanded this idea of enhanced security clearance. We, as a committee, we thought that was important to clarify so that people knew coming forward, they're going to have a clearance. What does that entail? Everything and anything. And, yeah, okay. No, and that's all I have to say about that. So there's a lot more clarity to that. Another acronym for JOIN, and the last few pages are acronyms as well. They're used throughout the policy, and it gets confusing. So for someone coming on to the commission new, they see these acronyms, they don't know what they mean. So now there's a place for them to go to find out, so it kind of makes sense and they can ask questions. So with that, another fire hose moment, I guess. Questions, comments from the commission? Seeing none, through the chair, I would ask for a vote or a recommendation to accept these definitions.
Thank you, Commissioner Thorson. I think great work. Certainly a great starting document to catalog not only the definitions, but the existing policies and the work that lies ahead. We look forward to your work on this file and continue to offer the support that you may need. The Governance Committee has requested that this document be adopted as part of the governance modernization. Someone prepared to move?
So moved.
Vice Chair Keen, thank you. And I see Councillor Cogston seconds, if that's a move. With that, motion to approve as presented. Is anybody abstained? Opposed? Motion's carried. Well done, and we look forward to your continued work on the file. All right, we have no one in the gallery, so we'll skip past community consultation. The Commission will break for the summer, so our next meeting is on Wednesday, September 16th, here in Council Chambers. With that, we wish everyone a wonderful summer, and motion to adjourn. Commissioner Chukwunura, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who joined us online.